With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories: bolstering the judicial front, ECCB and RSS partner to combat financial crime. A legacy honored, Garvey's enduring message echoes in St. Kitts and Nevis. Guyana not to face proposed U.S. visa bonds. St. Lucia Prime Minister warns population decline threatens NIC. Labor reforms and social safety net expanded. Internationally, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel intends to take full control of all of Gaza. Now, the details. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank ECCB, in collaboration with the Regional Security System RSS and with funding from the Caribbean Development Bank CDB, recently concluded a 5-day intensive training workshop in St. Kitts and Nevis. The training aimed to enhance the capacity of the judiciary within the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States (OECS) to effectively address financial investigations and asset recovery procedures, particularly in the face of evolving trends in money laundering, terrorism, and proliferation financing. The ECCB has strategically balanced prudential supervision with anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, supervision, adopting an integrated approach. The proactive stance includes periodically reviewing processes and procedures to align with international best practices and address emerging risks within the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union (ECCU). The decision to designate the ECCB as the regulatory authority for AML-CFT for its licenses in 2016 stemmed from a need to address deficiencies cited in Caribbean Financial Action Task Force mutual evaluation reports and to promote uniformity in AML-CFT supervision frameworks. The recent training brought together over 50 members of the judiciary, including judges, magistrates, crown prosecutors, and financial investigators from across the OECS. These sessions facilitated crucial interactions, allowing participants to discuss challenges and identify opportunities for improvement in the administration of justice. The curriculum was robust, covering contemporary topics such as jurisprudence related to virtual assets and the impact of artificial intelligence on the accuracy of evidential submissions in court. Chief Director of Policy at the ECCB, D. Tracy Polius, underscored the vital role of the judiciary in this ongoing battle.
This training recognizes the importance and critical role of the judiciary in the fight against money laundering, terrorist and proliferation financing, and the impact on the effectiveness of any applied framework.
She emphasized that the training was specifically designed for the judiciary to strengthen their understanding of both the legal and operational elements of anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, offering practical exposure to investigative and prosecutorial processes.
Our legal frameworks, though significantly strengthened, are only as effective as the people entrusted to interpret and apply them. This is where this training becomes not just useful, but essential.
Polius detailed the 4 critical areas of focus for the training.
The current AML, CFT, CPF legal framework within the region, financial investigations and asset recovery processes, understanding the current and emerging money laundering, terrorist and proliferation financing trends, and international obligations under the FATF standards. The importance of these focus areas and the impact which they can have on our judicial system cannot be overemphasized.
Polius stressed the immense impact these focus areas can have on the judicial system.
Training for our judiciary can contribute to effective prosecution and convictions of money laundering cases, the admittance and evaluation of evidence, and most importantly, the application of penalties which are proportionate to the severity of the crime and acts as an effective deterrent. 2. The seizure, freezing, and confiscation of criminal proceeds to facilitate the recovery of assets across borders is fundamental to an effective system.
Keisha Sutherland, director of the RSS Asset Recovery Unit, issued a stern warning about the evolving nature of global criminal networks.
Ladies and gentlemen, the world has evolved significantly since 2015, and so too have the operations of criminal networks. And the innovative ways being used to finance illicit activities impacting our country. But 3 things remain constant: the presence of illicit financing flows in the region, the successes of applying financial investigation and asset recovery mechanisms when seeking to disrupt criminality, and the importance of building understanding and capacity within each branch of the state to effectively counter illicit financing and criminality and ensure that the countries remains on their path to reap the benefits of sustainable economic development.
The OECS's historically open economies are highly reliant on international trade and commerce, making them susceptible to money laundering and terrorism financing risks. The completion of this training signifies a collective commitment within the region to advance the effectiveness of their legal systems, ensuring that justice can be dispensed effectively in an ever-changing financial crime landscape. On August 6th, a significant ceremony unfolded on the historic shores of Pump Bay commemorating the arrival of Marcus Garvey in St. Kitts in 1937. The event, attended by Dr. Julius Garvey, son of the revered Pan-Africanist, alongside government officials, citizens, and residents, saw the unveiling of a powerful memorial park and port marker. This tribute marked a profound welcome to the very shores where Garvey's footsteps once touched the island, and where his enduring message of Black pride, Pan-African unity, and self-determination continues to resonate today. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, underscored the historical weight of the occasion, expressing gratitude for Dr. Julius Garvey's presence.
Dr. Julius Garvey, who has made the pilgrimage to the hallowed ground upon which his father stood. We thank you for stirring our ancestral memory about this important epoch in our national history and for bringing a message of healing, courage, and hope to the people of our great federation.
The Prime Minister further emphasized the vital lessons from history, particularly the transatlantic slave trade, highlighting
the invaluable importance of strength when we come together as one people.
He stressed the continued need for unity to
survive not only, but to thrive in today's world, where divisions of class and race continue to pose challenges.
This sentiment aligns with Garvey's own belief that no man can keep another man down without being kept down himself, and his challenge to the people that your St. Kitts will be no greater than your minds. Following the Pump Bay ceremony, the delegation proceeded to the Mutual Improvement Society building on Market Street, Bastyr, where Marcus Garvey had delivered a stirring address in 1937. Parliamentary Representative for Constituency Number 2, the Honourable Marcia Henderson, spoke with immense pride about her community's role in shaping the nation's intellectual and cultural landscape.
This community has, in fact, produced trailblazers and icons in all areas. And it is no coincidence that it was the site selected to construct the headquarters of the St. Kitts Mutual Improvement Society.
Henderson elaborated on the Mutual Improvement Society's pivotal role, describing it as
more than just a literary society. It was a platform for the Black intelligentsia to discuss, to debate, and engage in intellectual pursuits.
She highlighted its embodiment of
Ubuntu, a distinctly African principle that says, I am because we are. The MIS was focused on building community and working together to improve our conditions, to display compassion and kindness and brotherly love and, of course, sisterly love in the interest of the progressive welfare of our people.
Henderson further articulated how Garvey's message of self-awareness, education, and individual empowerment resonates deeply with the nation's vision for a sustainable island state. She drew parallels between Garvey's calls for
taking control of our lives, developing our minds, and striving for greatness resonates deeply with our vision as a sustainable island state. Our tourism strategy is built on the principles of sustainability, community engagement, and environmental stewardship.
The Venture Deeper campaign, she explained, encourages visitors to explore the island's vibrant culture and history, promoting
community-based tourism initiatives, authentic cultural encounters, and sustainable practices that benefit both our visitors and our locals.
She concluded by urging collective effort, envisioning a tourism industry rooted in Ubuntu, benefiting people, the environment, and the economy.
Together, we can build a more sustainable and a more equitable tourism industry that benefits our people, our environment, and our economy. Let us together make Bastia beautiful once again.
Dr. Julius Garvey shared a deeply emotional perspective on the visit, reflecting on his father's original message in 1937, which aimed
to liberate our minds from mental slavery, because we'd just been through slavery and we were in the throes of colonialism.
He emphasized Marcus Garvey's profound understanding that
the black skin was not a badge of shame, but really a symbol of greatness.
Dr. Garvey highlighted his father's extensive self-education and belief that
education was something that you really do for yourself, because none but yourself can liberate your mind.
He quoted his father's timeless advice.
There's all the knowledge is in the world, and all you have to do is pursue that knowledge. And whatever knowledge you want, you can accomplish that knowledge, you can gain that knowledge, because it's there already in the world. And the way to access that knowledge, of course, is to read, and read.
Dr. Julius Garvey further elaborated on his father's philosophy that,
and as he said, knowledge is power. He said, intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. And in the pursuit of knowledge, he felt that the most important knowledge really ultimately was self-knowledge. Because if you know yourself, that gives you, such a feeling that nobody can be your master. You have no earthly master.
He stressed that the most crucial knowledge is self-knowledge.
There's all the knowledge is in the world, and all you have to do is pursue that knowledge. And whatever knowledge you want, you can accomplish that knowledge, you can gain that knowledge, because it's there already in the world. And the way to access that knowledge, of course, is to read, and read.
Dr. Garvey reminded the audience that while God provides the land, it is humanity's responsibility to build the cities and create the desired future. He urged the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to embrace this co-creative role, making their beautiful land even more prosperous and equitable. He concluded with his father's enduring motto.
So one God, one aim, one destiny, one love. Thank you very much.
These ceremonies at Pump Bay and where the Mutual Improvement Society building stood served as a powerful reminder of Marcus Garvey's lasting impact on St. Kitts and Nevis. In regional news, Guyana not to face proposed U.S. visa bonds, news source Guyana reports.
Guyanese will not be required to pay a bond of up to $15,000 to enter the U.S. should the U.S. move ahead with a pilot non-immigrant program, U.S. Ambassador Nico Therio told reporters. The U.S. administration has proposed a pilot program that could see business and tourist visa applicants from certain countries being required to pay a bond of up to $15,000 to enter the United States. The U.S. ambassador said Guyana is not among the countries to be affected.
So currently, Guyana is not included on that list. It does not apply to Guyanese citizens applying for a visa.
According to U.S. media reports, the 12-month program would apply to travelers from countries with high visa overstay rates and weak internal documentation security. Based on the applicant's profile, the bond could range from $5,000 to $15,000. Ambassador Therio said Guyana's overstay rate is not problematic.
I haven't checked recently, but Guyana's overstay rate is not very high. It's not, in my opinion, it's not problematic in that sense. So at this moment, Guyana is not included on that list. And obviously anything could change, but I would be very surprised.
According to a report published by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, in 2023, Guyana had an overstay rate of 5.59%, with a total of 3,186 Guyanese with visas overstaying their time in the U.S. The U.S. government has been rolling out a number of initiatives to clamp down on illegal immigration.
St. Lucia Prime Minister warns a population decline threatens NIC. Labor reforms and social safety net expanded. DBS St. Lucia has the details.
Prime Minister Pierre revealed that while NIC contributions have risen due to increased employment, the long-term risks of a shrinking population mirroring global trends in Japan and Europe require immediate action. He cited discussions with NIC officials on the issue.
It's a serious problem. In Barbados, it has reached a height that the Prime Minister Mia Mottley, every day she speaks about it. In Europe, in the US. So it's a problem in Japan. It's almost like a pandemic in Japan. So we now have to decide, the question is our population is dwindling, but the people who are living now, they have to try to make their contribution for the NIC.
To mitigate the crisis, the government will launch a pension scheme for fishermen, a key demographic often excluded from formal benefits, and ramp up efforts to register young workers, particularly in booming but unregulated industries like beauty services.
But I want now to say to the people who are currently contributing, particularly the young people, there are a number of young people who are in business. There are people who are doing manicures, pedicures in the beauty industry. A number of them are not registered. And again, that is the role of the press, to ask people to get registered to the NIC.
The Prime Minister announced a landmark unemployment insurance program targeting involuntary unemployment, a stopgap measure paired with retraining initiatives.
Involuntarily, important word, involuntarily. That means you get employed because of no cause of your own, involuntary. And what's very important, I want you to follow, is the active labor market policy, where we're going to try to reskill you, not the NIC, reskill you, retrain you, so you can get another job. We don't want you to be in perpetual unemployment state, right? We're not dealing with a state where you're just not working, like in ancient times, and government pays you, no. No. If we're going to be involuntarily, you lost your job, is the government going to try, the NIC to retrain you so you can get alternative employment. So it's a stopgap measure between losing your job and getting other meaningful employment.
The program aligns with broader labor reforms, including profession-specific minimum wages, to be introduced in the next term. Prime Minister Pierre issued a blunt appeal to informal workers: register with the NIC or risk losing protections. We cannot have short-term destruction become perpetual. Those in the beauty industry, small businesses, they must contribute, he emphasized, tying compliance to the NIC's ability to fund pensions and unemployment benefits.
We now bring you these international reports.
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been sharing his plans about Gaza. Huda Abdelhamid is joining us now from Amman. She's in the Jordanian capital because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting in Israel and the occupied West Bank. So we've heard from Netanyahu speaking to American media. What has he had to say?
Well, he gave some details about what his thinking is when it comes to the next stage of this war in Gaza. What he said is that Israel wants to rid the Strip from Hamas, even though the military says that there hasn't been any direct confrontation between the two sides since June. He also said that Israel is not interested in governing the Gaza Strip, is not interested in having any kind of authority there, but it will hand it over to Arab forces that are friendly to Israel and wouldn't pose a security threat to Israel. He did also add that Israel was looking for a security perimeter. Now, we don't know how wide is this security perimeter. What I can tell you is this is the fifth war in Gaza, and each time there has, of the previous fourth war, the buffer zone between the fence that separates southern Israel from Gaza became wider and wider. Now people are squeezed in less than 20% of the territory, 2 million people. What will happen to them? He did not elaborate on that. And he didn't mention the hostages and the fate of the hostages. And the families of the hostages are putting a lot of pressure. They organized a symbolic flotilla that departed from the port of Ashkelon and went off the coast of Gaza. From there, they also called for Israel Israelis to carry out protest this evening while the Security Cabinet is meeting once again. So there's a lot of pressure on the Prime Minister coming from the families for the fate of these captives. They think that any kind of ground incursion will probably seal the fate of their loved ones still held in Gaza. But this is all based on an interview, what the Prime Minister said, what his plans should be about. He is meeting with the Security Cabinet, and once that meeting is over, we might have a bit more of an understanding, especially that Israeli media has been referring to an all-out ground invasion for the past, or ground occupation rather, for the past 72 hours, which is quite a bit different from what the Prime Minister said.
Okay, Huda, thank you so much for that reporting from Amman. Gideon Levy is a columnist for the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, joining us from Tel Aviv. So if we can start out with what Netanyahu has said, and that is we don't want to keep Gaza, we want a security perimeter, and we want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern Gaza properly. What do you read into this?
I really don't know with what to start. I mean, what Arab force will get into Gaza exactly? The Prime Minister rejected the option that the Palestinian Authority will take over Gaza. So what Arab force? You want to change one occupation with another occupation? And why would a Saudi army or a Jordanian army get into Gaza and find itself in the mud of Gaza? And why would the Palestinian accept it? I mean, by the end of the day, Gaza deserves a Palestinian government and not another occupation getting in. But above all, it is not serious because the plan is, to my view, much more outrageous than he tries to cover up. By the end of the day, the idea is to push the population out of Gaza, and all those operations and offensives are aimed at this, to push them to make Gaza an unlivable place and to tell the people you have only one choice, leave the Gaza Strip. And all the rest is camouflage and all kind of cover-ups.
What do you expect to come out of the Security Cabinet meeting?
Oh, it's a bunch of no-ones, and nobody will stand against the government, against the Prime Minister. The only question is how will the army and the chief of army, the chief of staff will react, and I'm not sure he's strong enough to stand against the Prime Minister. He will have to accept the plan.
For the first time, illegal migrants crossing the Channel on small boats have been detained under a new agreement between the UK and France. The migrants have been taken to immigration removal centres with a view to being deported back to France under the so-called one-in, one-out reciprocal agreement with the French authorities. Here's our reporter, Simon Jones.
The crossings have continued, but with a difference. For the first time under the new returns deal, some of those picked up in the Channel by the Border Force and brought to Dover yesterday are now being held and face being sent back to France. The government won't say how many. It claims that information could be exploited by the smuggling gangs. Critics believe it's because the numbers are very small.
The first migrants who've arrived on the small boats are now in detention. We will then swiftly make the referrals to France, and that process will now start to be able to return people to France. It's the beginning of the pilot, and it will build as well over time. But we're also clear that France is a safe country, so we will robustly defend against any legal challenge that people try, and we do expect for people to start being returned in a matter of weeks.
To try to stop this on the beaches of northern France, as part of the new deal, for every migrant deported, Britain will take an asylum seeker from France believed to have a legitimate claim to come to the UK. But the Shadow Home Secretary, who went out on a boat on the Channel this week to see the situation for himself, says it's a gimmick.
Boatfuls of migrants have crossed the Channel. I saw them leaving French waters, being picked up, and they're arriving behind us in the docks at Dover. So there is no deterrent effect whatsoever. Their deal isn't working.
Footage from the Channel released by the Home Office It insists the one-in, one-out scheme will take the UK one step closer to restoring order to the immigration system, preventing life-threatening scenes like these. Small boat crossings are at record levels for this point of year. So far, around 25,500 people have reached the UK in dangerously overloaded dinghies. That's an increase of 45% on the same period last year. The UK will have up to 14 days to request the return of individuals arriving by small boat to France. It could take up to 3 months for the process to be completed, according to the treaty signed this week. From today, migrants in France will be able to apply online to come to the UK. The number of people exchanged is initially expected to be limited. The government hopes to ramp up returns over time, but the project will ultimately be judged on whether the crossings do start coming down. Simon Jones, BBC News.
Nice to be with you.
The two most powerful men in the world went from niceties to lashing out over Ukraine.
I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay?
But now both White House and the Kremlin agree that Presidents Putin and Trump are ready to meet once again.
The location is chosen, but not declared.
It will be the first meeting since 2021 and the first since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, what Trump described as a mess he inherited from his predecessor. The US and EU have slapped some of the strictest sanctions on Russia since then, and Moscow has found new allies in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, some of whom are ready to host the US and Russian presidents and sign deals on the eve of a deadline set by Trump.
We have many friends who are ready to help us organize events of this kind. One of them is the President of the United Arab Emirates. I think we'll make a decision, but it would be one of the most suitable locations. I've said more than once that I have nothing against the possibility of Zelensky taking part in the meeting, but certain conditions need to be created for that, and we're still far from that.
With no official numbers, it's estimated hundreds of thousands of people have been killed in the Russia-Ukraine war. And the American leader will have to figure out the middle ground where Russia and Ukraine can reach a compromise. Russia wants Ukraine to give up its NATO ambitions and for Russia to remain in control of territory it has captured. And so far there is no indication that the Ukrainian leader will be part of the US-Russia discussion about his country. A meeting is going to be portrayed as a win for both American and Russian audiences. The American president is going to tell his base that it was the threat of his sanctions which forced the Russians to the negotiating table. And the Russian media is already calling it for their president, saying he has the advantage on the battlefield and now making the American president come back to the negotiating table. But the big question of whether this will bring about peace and bring an end to the bloodshed still remains. Sama Mijaved, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
At a hospital in Khan Yunis, a before and after image that speaks to the hunger crisis gripping Gaza. 12-year-old Huda Abu Anaja says she is always weak and sleeping, and that her bones have begun to show.
I need proteins. I need meat, fish, and eggs. When the border crossings closed, this stopped coming to us.
A global hunger monitor has said a famine scenario is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. That's after Israel cut off all supplies to the enclave from the start of March. In May, it created the U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, to distribute aid, though that organization has been criticized by the United Nations, humanitarian organizations, and foreign governments. In a hospital in Gaza City, Amira Mutayer cradles her 5-month-old baby. She says Amar sometimes spends 15 to 20 days a month without milk. He survives on a fortified solution provided by the hospital, she says, and when that runs out, all he has to consume is polluted water.
Amar has toxic and severe malnutrition. The shadow of death is threatening him because of hunger.
Israel has previously denied there is a hunger crisis in Gaza and blames the militant group Hamas for the suffering there. It says it is taking steps for more aid to reach Gazans, including pausing fighting for parts of the day in some areas, allowing airdrops, and announcing protected routes for aid convoys. However, the United Nations says airdrops are insufficient, and that many Palestinians have been shot by Israeli forces near GHF sites. The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office has said food consumption across Gaza has declined to its lowest level since the onset of the war. Nearly 90% of households have resorted to, quote, extremely severe coping mechanisms to feed themselves, OCHA said in a statement, including taking significant risks to obtain food and scavenging from garbage. Gaza health authorities say close to 200 Palestinians have died of starvation since the war began 22 months ago, and that nearly half of them were children. In a tent in Gaza City, Ibrahim al-Najjar says he lost his 5-year-old son Naim to malnutrition. That was a year ago. The former taxi driver is still grieving, while trying to save his other sons from the same fate. He points to his 10-year-old son Farah.
This child is following him. For about a month he's been falling unconscious. This child used to be double the size he is now.
Each morning, Ibrahim's older son Adnan navigates Gaza's mountains of rubble in search of a soup kitchen, but his mother Najwa says her children crave a piece of tomato, or to eat bread like other people, adding that she would beg for a grain of salt. For those who do not believe, she says, come see the children of Gaza. We are not living. We are dying slowly.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were bolstering the judicial front, ECCB and RSS partner to combat financial crime. A legacy honored, Garvey's enduring message echoes in St. Kitts and Nevis. Guyana not to face proposed U.S. visa bonds. St. Lucia Prime Minister warns population decline threatens NIC. Labor reforms and social safety net expanded. Internationally, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel intends to take full control of all of Gaza. Thank you for listening.